All right, the next early numeracy skills we're going to be talking about are addition and a subtraction with sets. Now, note that I said with sets. So the students are making sets when they are doing addition and subtraction, and those are supports for those math skills. And so with addition, we are combining sets, putting sets together to add. And then when you're doing subtraction, I'm sure you're aware of this already. It's called decomposing, and we decompose sets to subtract. So what instructional strategies can we use? We can use model lead tests. Now I know that you hear model lead test a lot, and I intentionally put that in here because I want you to see that that is a skill if you're having to do your observations early that you have in your pocket already that you can pull out to teach your math skills, for example, if you're having your observations done in math now. So you can use model lead tests, but don't let that be your comfort zone. Don't let that be your go-to all the time because it's easy to do. Because there are skills for which that is not the most effective or the most efficient skill. It takes a while to get through I do, we do, and you do. Not only that, there are students that need prompting, right? They're not going to be able to just watch you and then do it with you and then be able to do it by themselves. They need a higher level of support than that. That's why we call our students with complex support needs because they have a variety of supports, right? So don't let it become your comfort level that your go-to, but it is an evidence-based practice for addition and subtraction, and you could use the system of least prompts. But again, you could use other instructional strategies as well. So when you are teaching addition and subtraction, this is a sequence of steps that we typically teach those skills with. First, we start by just combining sets up to 5. We're taking this set, we're taking this set, we're putting them together. And often when I teach this, if it's where the students are, we then count to figure out how many, but it's really just combining those sets, right? Combining the sets. And then we want to do that up to 5 and figure out how many because we're working on addition and subtraction. So I take one object, I take 4 objects, I put them together. I just combine two sets into one set, and I'm going to count to find out how many are in that set. Next, we're going to move up to sums of 5. And so in that one, we are actually taking, in that case, you would have an equation. So you might have 3 plus 1, whereas before we just had one object and 3 objects that we put together. There were no numbers attached to it. We weren't told how many they were. We just combined them. In the next set, we're going to have an equation. So 3 plus 1, in this case, we would make a set of 3. We would make a set of 1. We would combine them. We would count our total. Our total would be, in this case, would be 4. And then we would write that 4 right in our equation, or we would tell someone. So in that one, we are actually working in addition. The first one, we're combining sets without an equation. The second one, we are actually working on addition where we have that equation. Then we would move to sums of 10, 1 to 10, and then we would move to subtraction. It is not until you've done addition that we would then teach subtraction. And so we would work on differences of 9 or fewer. And here's just an example so that you can see why we teach addition first. Number one, it's an easier concept to teach that we're adding to. And then when we look at the alignment and the association, how subtraction and addition or addition and subtraction are related, you can see that we would teach addition first, and then we would teach the inverse of it, which would be our subtraction. And again, here's just showing you how the add-in is related to the subtrahend. And if you're not used to that word, that vocabulary, I don't use it very often either, but that is the correct vocabulary for addition and subtraction. All right, so you're going to do a try and apply. This time you're going to teach your partner to add to 5, adding to 5, using your manipulatives, and this time you're going to use a graphic organizer. Graphic organizers are evidence-based practices for this skill, so we want to make sure that we're implementing the supports that will help our students acquire skills most quickly and that would support them in their cognitive processing and their understanding of the skill as a whole. So you're going to teach addition to 5 using your manipulatives, using a graphic organizer, and teaching using model lead tests this time. Here are 2 examples of graphic organizers that you could use. This one is in your resources on Canvas, or you can just draw it out. You can just use a piece of paper. So for this one, if I was just combining sets, I wasn't actually adding, or I could do it with adding as well. Let's say that I had the equation 4 plus 2. I would put 4 objects in this circle, 2 objects in this circle. Then I would move the 4 over, move the 2 over, and count my total. And then I would be able to write the answer to my equation, 4 plus 2 equals 6. Here's another example. We could write 4 plus 2 equals, and then we would do 4 at the top. So we need to make a set of 4. Student makes a set of 4, 2, 4 plus 2, make a set of 2, move all my set of 4 over, move my set of 2 over, count my total. My total is 6, and write my answer up at the top. Of course, you wouldn't do 6 in this one because you're doing to 5. Now, what you're going to do is model lead test. So you're going to do it first. You're going to demonstrate and model. As you're modeling, you're going to give information. You're going to tell the why. Remember, you're doing a show and tell. Not only are you modeling how to do it, but you're demonstrating your reasoning through a think aloud. Oh, look, I see the first number in my number sentence is a 4. That means I need to make a set of 4, and I encourage you to use your vocabulary. Instead of saying I need to put 4 in the circle, we want to use our math vocabulary. I need to make a set of 4. Oh, look, the second number in my number sentence is a 2. Now I need to make a set of 2. All right? Go ahead and do that in your try and apply. Make sure that with all of your try and applies, you come back and just do a quick write to let me know how they went, what you thought about it, any questions, anything that was difficult. Just again, just want to see your thoughts after you have the opportunity to implement it. Next early numeracy skill is patterning. And I wonder if you've ever thought that patterning is actually the precursor to algebraic thinking. So even when you are in kindergarten, you are building foundational skills for algebraic thinking. And so here are the instructional strategies that are effective for patterning: constant time delay, simultaneous prompting, and model lead test. I made sure I put model lead test on everything, again, just because I want you to see that no matter where you are, as far as your observation goes, you have the skill and the strategy to implement high quality instruction for your students. So when you are teaching patterning, first you want students to just identify the pattern. So an ABA pattern, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. You want them to identify it. After they're able to identify a pattern, then you want them to extend the pattern. So you would give red, blue, red, blue, red, and then they would have to do blue, red, blue, red. They would continue it. After they've learned to extend a pattern, you then teach them to create a pattern. So you could say to your students, make an ABC pattern, and then they might do cow, dog, horse, cow, dog, horse, cow, dog, horse. And then finally, you're going to have them complete the missing components of a pattern. So what if I had a pattern that was cow, dog, blank, cow, dog, horse, cow, dog, horse? What would go in that blank, right? They could look at the second 2 steps in that pattern and they would be able to see that it was cow, dog, horse. It was a horse. And so here are just some examples. This is an ABA pattern, and they've just made it into a fun little art activity. So they've got an AB, 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 AB. Here is another example. This is an ABB pattern, and in this case, they have a visual prompt that tells them what the pattern is, and this is a support that you can use when your students are in those early learning stages of patterning. So in this one, they have an ABB, ABB pattern. All right, next I want you to try patterning with your partner. So if again, this is something you can do all at one time, or you could stop the video each time and go get someone. So you're going to teach your partner to make an ABA pattern. So you need to use both sets of manipulatives, and they're going to extend an ABA pattern. So what you would do is you would have it. So you would have, in this case, they would extend it by saying duck football, duck football, duck football, duck football, duck. And then the student's going to extend it by doing football, duck. And you get to determine this time what instructional strategy you want to use. I know that a lot of you are going to want to use model lead test because that's the easy one, but I challenge you to stop and think of what other strategy that you could use. Remember, you've got a couple right here, simultaneous prompting, constant time delay. But if you are very comfortable with model lead tests, I encourage you to try something else and to step out of your comfort zone. All right, measurement. So, measurement is something that we use very frequently in our lives. Think about how often you have to measure something. Think about how often you need to know the weight of something. And so, really, it's just assigning a magnitude to some object, to some attribute of an object. And again, could be length, weight, or height. So instructional strategies, constant time delay, simultaneous prompting, model lead test, all effective. And you know what I would say here. But you could always also use system of least prompts if you wanted to. Or if needed, maybe you're actually measuring something where you're putting things out and maybe you need to do graduated guidance with the student. Again, depends on what your student's needs are. But when you're teaching measurement, you're typically going to start by comparing objects using things like taller, longer, shorter, wider, heavier, that type of thing. Then you're going to move to what are called non-standard units of measure, so non-standard measurement. And if we look at this, this is an example of a non-standard unit of measure, and the unit we are measuring with are paper clips. That's not what we typically measure with. When I measure to like have a new floor put in my living room, we did not measure that with paper clips, right? That's a standard unit of measure. But we usually use a non-standard unit of measure because before we move to a standard unit of measure, because a standard unit of measure is much more difficult. Think about a ruler or a yardstick or a tape measure and all the little lines and all the numbers and all the different measurements. When we're first learning how to measure, something like measuring with paper clips makes it a whole lot easier for our students to understand that we are when we measure, we're assigning a magnitude, for example, to the length of a pencil. My students always loved it. One of the early on lessons that we did was we measured with our shoes. Everybody got to take their shoes off and we lined them up and we would measure the length of a desk or the length of our room or the length of my desk or the length of a stander in the classroom, like a prone stander. So once you do a try and apply, this time I am going to let you use model lead test, but I want you to teach a partner to measure the length of your computer. And I put here with sticky notes, but if you have paper clips, that's fine. If you want to use shoes, that's fine. Just let me know what your non-standard unit of measure is. So again, measuring the length of your computer with sticky notes. I'm going to say again, please, please make sure you do this. You are going to have to teach students math. You have 2 math lessons to teach. So it is extremely important that you practice this now. And why do I want you to practice when I can't see you? Because there is learning in you practicing just on your own. There is learning in being successful and doing it, doing it correctly, implementing it correctly with high procedural fidelity. But there is also a lot of learning in making mistakes. I am a firm believer that mistakes are a-okay, and that is actually one of the most fertile grounds for learning if you think of it that way. If you think of it, if I make a mistake, that is such fertile ground for me to learn, right? So again, go ahead and stop and do a try and apply with measurement. When you are done, we are finished with this video, so go ahead and let me know how'd you do. You did really well, you feel really comfortable with these early numeracy skills, or you need some support. And as always, questions, 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 bring them. That's what I'm here for, is to answer your questions and support you in any way that I can. All right, I'll see you in the next one.